In the wild reaches of Arizona, where law was often written by a six-shooter and kindness was rarer than rain, a story of redemption was about to be carved into the dust. Two Apache sisters, torn from everything they had ever known, were about to discover that deliverance sometimes rode in from the most unlikely quarter. And a weary rancher, haunted by grief and solitude, was about to make a choice that flew in the face of everything the territory expected of him. This is a tale about the true measure of family, the steep cost of freedom, and how love can sprout even in the cruelest soil. Before we ride into this journey, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from folks across the world. Dust hung thick as burlap in the air, kicked up by the hooves of 50 horses and wagons that circled a makeshift auction ground outside Tombstone. The date was October 3, 1881, one I would never shake from my memory. I hadn't meant to be there that day. Business had held me in town longer than planned, and curiosity got the better of me when I heard the ruckus. What I stumbled into chilled me clear to the bone. It wasn't cattle being traded like I first thought. It was people. My name is Colt Dawson. I'm 42 years old and I've seen enough of this hard world to fill 3 lifetimes. I've worked my spread in Red Canyon alone ever since sickness took my wife Clara 3 years back. Life on that ranch has been nothing but sweat, silence, and memories I can't seem to bury. But nothing prepared me for what I saw that afternoon. On a rickety platform stood Silas Black, an oily trader with a crooked grin, barking out offers as if he were hawking mules. "Ladies and gentlemen," he drawled, "today we've got prime stock. Strong backs for ranching, mining, whatever suits your fancy." The crowd was a stew of rough men, miners with soot still on their faces, ranchers with calloused hands, drifters with cold eyes. They poked and prodded at the captives like horse buyers, pulling at muscles, prying open mouths to check teeth. My stomach turned. Most of the poor souls were Apache, taken in raids or ambushes. Men, women, even children, shackled together like they were nothing more than freight. Sheriff Harlan stood in the crowd, not to enforce the law but to size up the merchandise himself. That's when I saw them. 2 young Apache women stood at the far end of the line. Sisters, it was plain from the way they shared the same proud cheekbones and stood shoulder to shoulder. The elder, maybe 26, angled her body protectively in front of the younger, who looked no older than 19. What struck me wasn't fear. It was fire. Where others slumped with despair, these 2 stood tall. The older sister's dark eyes burned like coals barely held in check. The younger's gaze carried a quiet dignity that no chains could dim. "Now here we've got something special," Silas Black crowed, swaggering closer. 2 Apache squaws, sisters so I'm told. Strong, young, and with the right persuasion, they'll make fine workers. The lewd chuckles that rolled through the crowd made my hands ball into fists. "The older one's a fighter," Black smirked, keeping his distance from her glare. "Might need breaking in but she'll be worth it. The little one's gentler, just right for household chores." He spoke of them like they were beasts and the bile rose hot in my throat. "Let's start the bidding at $50 for the pair." Hands shot skyward. 60. 75. 100. Each shout landed like a hammer on my chest. These weren't men hunting for ranch hands. Their eyes betrayed darker hungers. The older sister suddenly turned her head, locking eyes with me through the press of bodies. For a heartbeat the world went still. Her stare wasn't pleading. She was too proud for that. No, it was a dare. A question that cut deeper than a blade. "Are you just another man who'll look away? Or will you stand up?" 150, roared a heavy-set man I knew, Griff, a mine boss infamous for grinding men to death in his shafts. 175, came another shout, from Boone, whose cruelty toward women was whispered all across the territory. The numbers climbed, each bid souring my stomach further. The younger sister began to tremble, though her chin stayed high. The elder's jaw was iron. 250. Boone bellowed. The crowd hushed. It was more than most saw in half a year. Silas Black licked his lips. Going once? Going twice. Something inside me snapped. Maybe it was the memory of my own little sister, long gone to fever when we were children. Maybe it was simply that some wrongs cut too deep to let pass. $300. I barked. Every head swung my way. Greed lit Silas Black's eyes. Boone's face twisted with rage. Well, Black purred with a grin. Looks like Colt Dawson just joined the bidding. 300 from the man in the back. Silas Black shouted, his grin spreading like a coyote's snarl. All eyes turned to me. Boone's face flushed red, rage burning in his eyes. 325, he barked. 350, I fired back without pause. 400. Boone spat, his voice dripping venom. The crowd began to buzz, thrilled by the duel. I glanced again at the sisters. The older one, proud and unbending, was still staring straight at me, trying to decipher my intentions. $500, I said loud and clear. The air cracked with gasps. 500 was a staggering sum, more than most families scrape together in a year. Boone's jaw tightened, but even his greed knew its limits. Going once, going twice, sold. Silas Black slammed the gavel. The Apache sisters go to Mr. Dawson for $500. I pressed through the mob to seal the deal, whispers trailing behind me. What's Dawson want with 2 squaws? Thought he was still pining over Clara. Man's got peculiar tastes, that's what I hear. I ignored the gossip and faced Silas Black, who nearly rubbed his palms raw with delight. Congratulations, Mr. Dawson, he said smugly. Fine purchase. They'll serve you well. I handed him the money in silence, then turned to face what I had just bought. The word itself tasted like ashes in my mouth. I hadn't purchased livestock. I'd bought 2 souls. Even if I did it to spare them from worse, it felt rotten all the same. The older woman's chains had been cut from the main line, but her wrists were still bound, as were her sisters. Their eyes fixed on me, steady, unreadable. What are your names? I asked, drawing on the scraps of Apache I remembered. The elder's brows rose in surprise, but she said nothing. I asked your names, I repeated in English. Her voice was level, defiant. I am Naya. This is my sister Lena. Well, Naya and Lena, I said, we've got a long trail ahead. As I helped them into the wagon, their eyes never left me. The murmur of the crowd followed like dust in the wind. That's when Sheriff Harlan strolled over, smirk tugging at his lips. Dawson, he drawled, hope you know what you're doing. Apache women can be unpredictable. I can handle myself, Sheriff. Just remember, they're yours now. Anything happens, it's on your head. The word property crawled over my skin like maggots, but I kept my jaw tight and climbed onto the wagon seat. As we rolled out of Tombstone, I caught Naya's reflection in the polished side of a lantern glass. She was whispering in Apache to her sister, likely guessing at their fate. I couldn't fault them for being afraid. For an hour we rode in silence, only the wheels and hooves breaking the stillness. At last Lena spoke, her English halting, fragile. Where are you taking us? I looked back at the 2 young women I had spent $500 hard on, and in that moment made a choice that would change everything. Home, I said simply. I'm taking you home. Confusion shadowed their eyes, but behind it flickered the faintest spark of hope. They didn't yet know what I meant, but they would. The Red Canyon Ranch sprawled across 2,000 acres of grazing land, tucked beneath the crimson cliffs that gave it its name. A sturdy house stood at its heart, barns and corrals stretching out around it. Clara and I had built it with dreams of raising a family, but since her passing, the place had been a hollow shell. As we pulled up, May, my housekeeper, stepped out. She was a widow in her 50s who'd worked alongside Clara and me for near a decade. Her eyes widened when she spotted the sisters, and she crossed herself. Lord Almighty, Colt Dawson, what have you done? Something I should have done long ago, I answered, climbing down. I walked to the wagon and reached up to help Naya down. She hesitated, but finally took my hand. Her grip was firm, warm despite the October chill. Lena followed, trusting, letting me steady her as she stepped to the ground. They stood there in my yard, bound and uncertain. May, I said, see if you can set up the guest rooms and maybe find proper clothes for them. Guests. Her brows shot up. That's right, guests. I faced Naya and Lena squarely. Listen well. You are not my property. You are not slaves. What happened back in Tombstone was a travesty, and I'm sorry for it. From here on you're free. You may leave whenever you wish. But if you choose to stay, you'll be treated as part of this household with the respect that goes with it. I drew a knife from my pocket. Both stiffened, bracing, but instead of menace, I cut through their bonds. Rope fell to the dirt. Naya rubbed her wrists, her dark eyes studying me like she was trying to read a map. Why? She asked. Why spend so much for us, if not to use us? I met her gaze. Because sometimes the right thing to do is also the hardest. And I couldn't stand by and do nothing. That night, sitting alone in my study with the red cliffs glowing silver under the moonlight, I wrestled with the weight of what I'd done. I had just brought 2 Apache women under my roof, in a land where hatred for their kind ran hotter than a branding iron. I'd spent $500 I could ill afford, and I had no way of knowing if the gesture would ever be trusted, let alone understood. But when I pictured what would have become of Naya and Lena if I'd stood by, I knew I'd made the only choice I could live with. The question now was whether I could shield them from harm, and if they could ever learn to trust the man who had, on paper, bought them like cattle. Time would tell. For the first time in 3 long years since losing Clara, I felt the faint stirrings of purpose again. I rose before dawn, same as always, but the house no longer felt empty. For the first time since Clara's death, I wasn't the only soul beneath my roof. The thought sat strange and heavy with me. While I brewed coffee in the kitchen, soft voices drifted down from upstairs, May speaking quick Spanish sprinkled with broken Apache, and the sisters answering low and uncertain. An hour later May came down, her face clouded with concern. "Colt, we need to talk." "What's wrong?" "Those girls, they've been through hell." The younger one, Lena, barely speaks. "Won't tell me what happened before that auction." "And Naya?" May shook her head. "That woman's like a wolf cornered. She doesn't trust anyone, least of all a white man." "Can you blame her?" I asked quietly. "No, I can't. But you best understand what you've brought into your life. They think this is some kind of trick. They're waiting for you to show your true hand." The thought of being seen as just another threat tightened something in my chest. "What can I do to prove otherwise?" "Time, patience, and prayer," May said. "Plenty of prayer." Later, as I brushed down the horses, Naya appeared in the doorway of the stable. She wore one of May's dresses now, but her bearing hadn't softened, alert, sharp as a hawk, every movement coiled and ready. "You speak Apache," she said without introduction. "A little," I admitted. "You fought my people." It wasn't a question. "Yes," I said. "How many did you kill?" The bluntness caught me off guard, but I couldn't lie. "I don't know. It was war. Men died on both sides." "And women? Children?" "Never by my hand," I said firmly. "Not once." She studied me a long moment, eyes like flint testing steel. "Why should I believe you?" "Because I'm telling you the truth. And because if I meant you harm, I wouldn't have cut your ropes last night. Maybe you just prefer your victims willing." The word stung like a slap, but I kept my tone even. "Or maybe I am what I said I was, a man trying to do the right thing." Her gaze narrowed. "And what is the right thing, Colt Dawson? What do you expect from us?" "Nothing," I said. "Nothing except the same respect I give you." She let out a bitter laugh. "Respect? You bought us like horses at a market. How is that respect?" "It isn't," I admitted. "What happened in Tombstone was wrong. I can't undo it. All I can do now is try to make things right." Naya was silent, watching me curry the horse. Finally she said, "My sister thinks you might be different. She's always been too trusting." "And you?" "I think white men are good at pretty words when it serves them." "Fair enough," I replied. "Then I'll prove myself by actions, not words." I shifted the subject. "Where are you from?" "The Chiricahua Mountains," she said slowly. "Our people lived there for generations, before." She stopped. "Before what?" Her jaw tightened. "Before men like you decided we didn't belong." The days that followed found a fragile rhythm. May guided the sisters, found them clothing, showed them around the house. Lena began to thaw, her quiet nature warming under May's care. Naya, though, stayed distant, always watchful, as if waiting for me to show my hidden fangs. Sometimes I caught her studying me when she thought I wasn't looking. On the 4th day the first true test came. Sheriff Harlan rode up with 2 deputies, dust swirling around their horses. "Dawson," he hollered as I stepped out onto the porch. "We need to talk." From an upstairs window, I glimpsed Naya and Lena watching, their faces tense. My gut tightened. "What is it, Sheriff?" I called. "Got reports of trouble with your new acquisitions. Neighbor says he saw one of them trying to steal chickens from his coop." It was a bald-faced lie and we both knew it. My closest neighbor lived 5 miles off, and neither sister had left my land. "That's curious, Sheriff," I said, steady as stone. "They haven't set a foot off my land." "You calling me a liar, Dawson?" Harlan's eyes narrowed to slits. "I'm saying your information's wrong." "I'll be needin' to search your spread," he sneered. "Make sure you're keepin' those savages under control." "You got a warrant?" I asked. "Don't need one for runaway property." "They're not runaways," I shot back. "They're my guests." "Guests?" Harlan barked out a laugh. "Is that what we're calling it now?" Before I could speak, Naya stepped quietly onto the porch beside me. I hadn't even heard her move. "Is there a problem here?" she asked, her English clear and sharp. Harlan's gaze swept over her with open disgust. "Well, I'll be damned, the savage speaks English. How civilized." I felt Naya tense, but her voice stayed calm. "I speak 3 tongues, English, Spanish, and Apache. How many do you speak, Sheriff?" Color rushed into his cheeks. "Watch your mouth, squaw, or I'll see you back on the block where you belong." "That's enough," I said, stepping forward, my voice cold. "State your business or get off my property." "My business," Harlan said, puffing his chest, "is keepin' the peace. Apache have been ridin' ranches, stealin' cattle, killin' good Christian folk. How do I know these two ain't scoutin' for their warriors?" "Because they've been right here under my eye since Tuesday," I answered. "Unless you're accusing me of helpin' raiders." The words hung heavy between us. Harlan was crooked, but not fool enough to accuse a landowner without proof. He spat into the dirt. "Just keep him on a short leash, Dawson. Any trouble, I'll hold you responsible." When he and his men finally rode off, the yard felt quiet as a grave. Naya stood beside me a long moment. "Thank you," she said at last. "For what?" "For not handing us over. Would have been easier." "I don't do things 'cause they're easy," I told her. Her eyes softened just a flicker. "Why did you really buy us, Colt? Don't tell me it was only to do the right thing. No man spends $500 on strangers out of righteousness." I'd been asking myself the same thing. At last I answered. "Because 3 years ago I lost everything, my wife, our unborn child, my reason for living. I've been walking dead ever since. But when I saw you and your sister standing proud on that platform, I saw something I thought I'd never see again." "What?" she asked, her voice low. "Hope. That broken things can be mended, that lost things can be found again." That evening, while Naya helped May with supper, Lena joined me on the porch. She was still shy, but her voice carried more strength than before. "My sister doesn't trust easily," she said softly. "I've noticed," I replied. "She has reason. The men who captured us, they were cruel." The quiet weight of her words made my fists clench. "I'm sorry," I said. "Naya protected me. She always protects me. But sometimes the things we do to survive, they change us." I studied her, so young, yet carrying the wisdom of someone who had seen too much pain. "What do you want now, Lena? Where do you want to go?" "I don't know. Our people are scattered. Our village destroyed. Some went to the reservation. Others fled south. We have no one left but each other." "Then stay here," I told her. "As long as you want." "Why?" she asked. "What do you gain from keeping us?" It was a fair question. Maybe the chance to be a better man than I was. Maybe the chance to make amends. Her lips curved into the smallest smile. "And maybe, we all gain a family." The word struck harder than a bullet. Family. Something I thought I'd lost forever. That night, lying awake, I heard the sisters whispering in Apache across the hall. I couldn't understand the words, but the sound filled the house with life again. For the first time since Clara's death, I didn't feel completely alone. But I knew the storm wasn't over. Harlan wouldn't be the last to test me. And I still had to prove to Naya that I deserved even a scrap of trust. I had a feeling that trial was coming sooner than any of us expected. 2 weeks later, it did, when Silas Black rode up at dawn with 3 armed men. I was in the barn when May burst in, her face pale as chalk. "Colt," she gasped, "the slave traders here with gunmen?" I slid into my veins. I snatched up my rifle and headed for the house. From the yard I could see Naya and Lena peering from an upstairs window, fear plain in their eyes. "Stay inside," I called up. "No matter what happens, don't come out." Silas Black sat his horse in the center of my yard, his grin coiled like a rattler. The 3 men with him looked every inch hired killers. "Dawson," he hollered, voice all false cheer. "Hope you don't mind an early call." "State your business and get off my land," I snapped. Now," Black said, wagging a finger. "No need for hard words. I'm here on a matter of business." "What kind of business?" "Seems there's a complaint about your recent purchase." I kept my rifle ready but not aimed. "That's so. Turns out those Apache girls you bought ain't yours fair and square. Belong to someone else. Prior claim, you might say." "That's impossible. You sold them to me clean." "Ah, but there's the rub," Black purred. "I never had the right to sell 'em. They were taken by a bounty hunter. This here's Griff, on their way to a military prison. They slipped loose. I found him and figured they were fair game." It was a bald lie and he knew I knew it. But lies like that could land me in irons if the wrong folks believed them. Griff, a brute with dead eyes, spat in the dirt. "Those squaws cost me blood and sweat. I want 'em back. Plus what it cost me tracking them." "How much you talkin'?" I asked, stalling for time. $8,000 and the women. It was extortion, plain and simple. They meant to take Naya and Lena back, likely to sell them again and bleed me dry in the bargain. "And if I refuse?" Well then, Black said with mock sorrow, that'd be theft of military prisoners. Sheriff Harlan would have to clap you in irons. Be a terrible shame. At that moment, Naya strode onto the porch behind me. I told her to stay inside, but she was never one to take orders. You're lying, she said coolly. We were never prisoners. Griff's face twisted with rage. Shut your mouth, squaw, before I shut it for you. Try, she said, her hand drifting to the knife I'd given her. The air bristled. 4 armed men against me, 2 women in the crossfire. My pulse hammered. Here's my counter, I said, voice low but steady. You've got 10 seconds to clear off before I start shooting. Black chuckled. You're outnumbered, Dawson. Don't be a fool. 5 seconds, I growled, raising my rifle and sighting straight at his chest. You can't take all of us. Try me. For one tense heartbeat, no one moved. Then came the sound of hooves pounding the trail. Dr. Amos, our town physician, rode into the yard with 2 men in federal badges. Gentlemen, Amos called, his voice carrying. Hope we're not breaking up anything important. Confidence drained from Black's smirk. Federal authority had a way of ending games local law wouldn't touch. Perfect timing, Doc, I said, keeping my rifle steady on Black. Mr. Black, one marshal barked, we've been looking for you. For me? Black tried to laugh. What for? Illegal trafficking. Kidnapping. Running auctions without federal permits. The marshal's tone was flat, official. You're under arrest. As the marshal shackled Black and his men, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. Dr. Amos swung down and came up the porch steps. Sorry it took so long, he said in a low voice. Had to ride clear to Tucson to fetch real authority. Local law wasn't gonna touch this. How'd you know? I asked. May sent word, he said. I glanced at her in the doorway. She folded her arms, eyes sharp. I sent my nephew for help. Men like them carry evil in their bones. After the marshals hauled Black and his crew away, Amos stayed for coffee. At my urging, he looked over the sisters, finding scars and old injuries that spoke volumes of the torment they'd endured. They're strong, he told me privately. But they've been through hell. The younger one especially. She's been hurt in ways that'll take years to heal. My jaw tightened. What do you mean? Amos' eyes were grim. Use your imagination, Colt. Just be patient. Trust doesn't come easy after that kind of hurt. That evening, as the red cliffs faded under the night sky, Naya joined me on the porch. She sank into the chair beside me. Thank you, she said simply. For what this time? For standing against those men. For risking your life. Anyone would have done the same. No, she said firmly. Most men would have handed us over to save themselves. We sat side by side in silence, the stars kindling overhead. Can I ask you something? Naya said one evening, her tone edged with both curiosity and challenge. When you were a soldier fighting my people, did you ever question whether it was right? It was the kind of question that had kept me awake many nights. I drew a breath. Toward the end, yes. I began to see we weren't fighting monsters. We were fighting men and women who wanted only to protect their homes and families, no different than us. What made you see it that way? I hesitated. I met an Apache warrior once during a parley. His name was Enal Nish. Spoke English better than most school teachers raised in a mission school. We talked for hours, about family, about dreams of the future. That day I realized he wasn't a savage. He was just a man trying to defend what he loved. And what became of him? My throat tightened. He died in the very next fight. Gunned down while trying to surrender. Naya was silent for a long while. Then she asked quietly, Is that why you saved us? Because of guilt. Partly, I admitted. But also because it was the right thing. And because, I faltered. Because what? Because you and Lena remind me there's still something good left in this world worth guarding. The next morning, an unexpected rider appeared in my yard. He came alone, unarmed, sitting tall in his saddle with the kind of presence that commanded respect. It was Chief Red Hawk, a dignified Apache elder. The moment they saw him, Naya and Lena rushed from the house with tears streaming down their faces. Uncle! Lena cried, throwing her arms around him. The chief spoke to them in Apache for several minutes before turning his gaze to me. His eyes were sharp, studying me like a hawk circling prey. You are the white man who bought my nieces? Yes, I answered. But I freed them the moment they came into my care. So I have heard. Why? Because no person should ever belong to another. Chief Red Hawk studied me, his face carved from stone. You fought against my people once. I did, I admitted, voice heavy. And I regret it. Yet now you risk much to protect Apache women. That is not what most men would do. It's what any decent man should do. The chief shook his head slowly. No. It is what a good man does. There is a difference. He spoke with his nieces for nearly an hour. When he returned, he said, "They wish to stay here, with you. They say you have given them something they believed lost forever." "What's that?" "Hope. And a home." His eyes bore into mine. "You have my blessing, Colt Dawson. But hear me plain, if you ever betray their trust, I will come for you myself." "I understand." "Good. Then welcome to the family." As Chief Red Hawk rode away, I stood with Naya and Lena at my side, and for the first time in years, I felt a sense of belonging. "So," I said, glancing at them, "what do we do now?" Naya's lips curved into the first true smile I had ever seen from her. "Now we build a life together. A real family." Lena slipped her small hand into mine and whispered, "Home." And for the first time since Clara died, I felt like I was home again. Spring came early to Red Canyon that year, bringing a breath of renewal that seemed to touch every corner of the ranch. 3 months had passed since the sisters arrived, and the change was nothing short of remarkable. The house that had been a tomb of silence for 3 years now pulsed with laughter, conversation, and the warmth of family. Lena bloomed like a desert flower after rain. Her English grew fluent, and she took to the kitchen with joy, blending Apache recipes with ranch cooking to create meals richer than anything I'd tasted. She sang while she worked, old tribal songs that floated through the house like prayers. Naya had proven a natural hand with livestock. She read horses like open books, calming them with a touch, spotting illness in cattle before anyone else. But more than that, I could see the walls around her heart starting to crumble. Then, on March 15th, everything changed. I was in the corral with a restless young stallion when May came running, her face bright with excitement. "Senor Colt, come quick. There's news." I hurried inside to find Naya and Lena clutching a telegram, tears streaming down their faces. For a moment my heart stopped, fearing the worst. "What is it?" I asked. "Nothing bad," Naya said, wiping her cheeks. "Everything good. Better than we ever dreamed." Lena handed me the paper, her hands trembling. "Read. To Naya and Lena. Stop. Apache land rights settlement. Stop. Family claim recognized by federal court. Stop. Compensation awarded for stolen lands. Stop. Amount $35,000. Stop. Please contact immediately. Stop." I read it twice before the numbers sank in. $35,000, I whispered. "That's a fortune." "Our grandfather filed a claim 20 years ago," Naya explained. "Before he died, he told us, but we never believed anything would come of it. The government rarely honors Apache claims. But they did this time," Lena said, her voice trembling with wonder. "We're rich, Colt, actually rich." Lena's voice trembled with disbelief as she held the telegram. The weight of it hit me like a hammer to the chest. $35,000. Enough for the sisters to start over anywhere they pleased. They could buy land of their own, live in comfort, travel the world if they wanted. They could leave me. The thought struck harder than I cared to admit. Over the past months, I'd come to lean on Naya and Lena more than I'd realized. They weren't just guests anymore, they were my family. The idea of losing them felt like death all over again. "That's wonderful," I said, forcing a smile and trying to hide the ache in my voice. "You'll be able to build a new life, anywhere you want." Naya's eyes narrowed. "And what makes you think we want to go anywhere? With that kind of money you could have anything, a fine house in San Francisco, maybe even see Europe. Why stay tied to this lonely valley?" "Leave you?" Lena asked, her voice soft but firm. "Leave our home." "This isn't really your home," I argued. "You only ended up here by accident." "No," Naya cut in sharply. "We didn't end up here by accident. We're here because someone cared enough to save us when no one else would. Because someone showed us love when all we'd known was cruelty." I swallowed hard. "But now you have choices, real choices." "You're right," Naya said, rising to her feet. Her voice didn't waver. "We do have choices. And I choose to stay here, with the man I love." Her words cracked through me like a thunderclap. Well, she had said she loved me. "Naya," my throat caught. "I love you too. I've been denying it, telling myself it was gratitude or duty or just the need for company. But it's more. I love your strength, your kindness, that wounded heart of yours that still finds room for others. I love the way you guard your sister as if she were treasure. I love the woman you are." Lena's face lit with tears. "And I love having a big brother who protects us, who makes us feel safe." Why would we want to leave that? My eyes stung. Are you sure? Because once you stay, once we build a life together, I don't think I could survive losing you again. Then don't lose us, Naya said, stepping close enough for me to feel her warmth. Marry me, Colt Dawson. Make this family real. I had dreamed of hearing those words but never believed I would. You want to marry me? Even knowing all I've done, all the battles I've fought. Especially because of it, she said softly. Your past made you the man strong enough to save us. Your pain taught you how to understand ours. Looking at them, these two women who had brought light back into my life, I made the simplest decision I'd ever made. Yes, I whispered, pulling Naya into my arms. Yes, I'll marry you. And you can both stay here as long as you wish. Lena grinned through her tears. Actually, we've been thinking of something bigger. What's that? I asked. We want to use the money to grow this ranch. Buy more land, build a larger house, create something that can shelter more than just us, Naya said, her eyes shining. Lena added, a place where Apache families with nowhere else to go can work and live. A bridge between our worlds. The dream was bold, dangerous even. I knew many would oppose it. That could stir up trouble. Plenty of folks won't like it. Then we'll change their minds, Lena said confidently. One heart at a time, just like you changed ours. 6 months later, on a crisp October morning, Naya and I were wed in the valley beneath the Red Cliffs. Chief Red Hawk performed the Apache ceremony, while Dr. Amos handled the legal vows. The gathering was small but full of meaning. May and her family, a handful of neighbors who had come to respect our household, and several Apache families who had already found refuge working our land. As Naya walked toward me in a white dress, Lena at her side as maid of honor, I could scarcely believe how far life had carried me. A year ago, I was a broken man waiting to fade away. Now I was surrounded by love, purpose, and family. Do you take this woman as your wife? Dr. Amos asked. I do, I said, locking eyes with Naya. And do you take this man to be your husband, to love and honor in both your people's traditions? I do, Naya answered, her voice clear as a church bell. We sealed it with a kiss as cheers rose from our guests. Lena squeezed my arm, her smile brighter than the morning sun. This was what family felt like. This was home. That evening, under a sky thick with stars, Chief Red Hawk drew me aside. You've given my nieces more than shelter, he said. You've given them a chance to heal. And in return they have given you the same gift. Yes, I said quietly. They've saved me as much as I saved them. The road ahead will not be smooth, he warned. There will be those who despise what you are building here. I know, I said, glancing toward the ranch, now alive with light and laughter. But we'll face it together. The chief's eyes softened and a rare smile touched his face. Together. That is the Apache way. And it is becoming the Dawson way as well. As the celebration swirled around us, I stood with my wife and with Lena, gazing out at the land that would be our legacy. What had begun with an act of compassion had become something larger. A family, a vision, a bridge between worlds and a country still learning how to heal. Now we were building something that would outlast all of us. A home where love rose higher than hatred, where Apache and settler, ranch hand and family could live and labor side by side. It wasn't the life I imagined when I first rode into Tombstone 7 months back. It was better. It was a life worth living, worth defending, and worth handing down to those who would come after us. And it all began with 3 plain words I'd spoken on that dusty road. I'm taking you home. Sometimes the hardest rides start with one small step of faith. Sometimes family isn't the one you're born into, but the one you choose. And sometimes the greatest victories don't come from breaking others, but from opening your heart wide enough to let them break through your walls. Thank you for riding alongside us on this journey of redemption and love on the Arizona frontier. If this story stirred something in you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. What did you think of Colt Dawson's journey, from a bitter, haunted soldier to a man who found family again? Have you ever taken a chance to help a stranger when it wasn't easy? Tell us your story below, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss more Western tales of courage, compassion, and second chances.